Следующий вопрос с точки зрения социальной, даже, пожалуй, он даже еще острее. В Эстонии до сих пор держатся не слишком высокие цены на электроэнергию, во многом потому, что Эстония сама себя обеспечивает электроэнергией, даже какое-то количество электричества экспортирует, кажется. Судя по всему, этой практике скоро придет конец, потому что Евросоюз настаивает на том, чтобы закрылись эстонские электростанции в Нарвском районе, Видео. Они не экологичны, они старомодные, они не соответствуют европейским стандартам и так далее. Но если это произойдет, то это будет означать как минимум две вещи, как мне, по крайней мере, кажется. Самое очевидное – это социальная проблема, рост социальной напряженности, рост безработицы, причем в районе, который и так является самым неблагополучным в экономическом и социальном отношении в Эстонии. Ну а с другой стороны, я думаю, это неизбежно приведет и к росту цен на электричество, а это уже ударит и по Таллину, и по Тарту, и по Пярну, по всей Эстонии, не только по Ida-Virumaa. Что вы думаете по этому поводу?
First of all, I'd say that the impact on the price of electricity would be marginal, because currently Estonia is part of electricity exchange called Nord Pool, and we are dependent on Nord Pool prices anyway. Another issue is that, yes, if you make electricity out of oil shale, it is definitely problematic. It is definitely problematic because of carbon emissions, and there is talk about sort of exiting the oil shale as a part of economy, like in general or overall. There is talk, but this talk at current point is not that serious as of yet. And when we sort of talk about potentially closing down the power plants that use oil shale, it is still sort of a little bit further in the future. And we are sort of hoping that if economy continues developing, and as we have sort of need of labor force, that the economy can absorb that. Because we are not sort of talking about like concrete dates that like 2020 on 3rd of March, it will be the oil shale power plants will be switched off and the doors will be closed. No, that is still not the case.
И еще я хотел вернуться к теме недвижимости, то есть property prices. Динамика цен на недвижимость – это очень важный показатель вообще развития страны, экономики страны и так далее. С другой стороны, известно, что когда рынок недвижимости, как говорят по-русски, перегревается, becomes too hot, это может привести к ужасным последствиям, как это было в Соединенных Штатах Америки в 2008 году, например. Сейчас в Эстонии очень быстро растут цены на недвижимость. Я когда готовился к нашему разговору и много чего читал, с удивлением узнал, например, что цены на недвижимость в Таллине, средние цены, они уже практически достигли 2000 евро за квадратный метр. И это почти в 2 раза выше, чем цены на недвижимость в Риге. Вот не является ли эта ситуация потенциально опасной?
I would say that real estate is always dangerous when the cycle becomes negative or the interest rates rise. That is always sort of dangerous and maybe even explosive. But if you start looking at the real estate prices then in Estonia, then where are they rising? They are rising where people actually are living or where they want to go. In Tallinn, in Tartu, in Harjumaa region. Because these are the places where most of GDP is generated, and people from all the other areas move to Tallinn and to Harjumaa from other areas. Other areas, nothing is basically happening. The real estate is quite illiquid there, and no serious price increases. So this therefore has a little bit of economic logic behind it. Another issue is that if you start sort of looking at affordability of real estate, then it has been quite stable for the last 5 to 7 years because of the increases in real salaries. Because if you start thinking that, let's say that in Tallinn there is a couple who both earn quite nice salary, maybe they have a place where they live, which they own, which they can sort of sell, then the level that they are targeting, maybe for a house or a better apartment, is like 250,000. It's expensive, yes. But if you go back 10 years, the same kind of house was also 250,000. The average salary was like 750 to 800 euros. Now it's 1,200. So the affordability has actually been quite stable or trending up just a little bit. Of course, some prices might have gone up maybe a little bit too fast. Of course,
especially in some particular areas of Tallinn.
Yes.
Like we've bought a flat in Kalamaja, and everyone says that they've increased like 2-3 times in the past several years because it's a very trendy area.
Well, I also live in Kalamaja, and I have seen it. I moved actually there before it was cool, so I have to admit that the development has been rather rapid indeed. It has been rather interesting to observe, but the main point is that the affordability has been sort of stable, and the main points for increases in real estate prices are Tallinn, Harjumaa, and Tartu.
Well, judging by what you told me now, everything in Estonia looks pretty bright. Your view is rather optimistic. And I wonder, maybe I haven't asked you about something important, and where do you see potential problems for the future of Estonian economic and financial system?
Well, the trick is that, as we have several times already mentioned, that the real salary has been increasing for years and in a very nice pace, actually. And this is actually the reason behind it is sort of lack of labor force or deficit of labor force. Now, deficit of labor force is definitely something that limits the development of the economy when you look even a little bit longer term. That is one issue. Another issue is that when you have salary increases which are much more rapid than productivity increases, then when the cycle turns, or when the environment in which we are sort of operating now as an export-oriented country, if the environment changes, then our changes are also quite rapid. So we are leveraged to the development and health of economy of our main trade partners. So it is, I think that some of the sort of more strict economists would say that you shouldn't make a comparison like this. But it's for just an illustration. If the economy of Germany grows like 2%, we grow by 4%. If the economy of Germany drops by 2%, we drop by 5%. So the environment, the external environment, as like when 80% of GDP is export, the external environment actually determines where we are and how we live. And this is actually one of the risks lurking in the external environment are our main risks, are our main sort of short-term risk. Longer term, as said, lack of labor force, and of course population aging, which actually increases sort of the government expenses on pensions and on elderly populations, and at the same time sort of makes the deficit of labor force even more difficult. So there are issues where I must admit that yes, today everything is more or less almost as good as it can be. But the longer term you look, the more you must face the aging population problem, the lack of workforce problem, and even if you look at the perspective of maybe 1.5, 2.5 years, then the external environment and our main trade partners, because we are in a Eurozone, we are in a European Union, and one might argue, but the general health of the European Union's economy, it's not that good.
It's doubtful.
It is doubtful because they have the same aging population problem, and in addition to that, they have huge debt with which it is rather troublesome to service it when your economy is not growing.
Понятно. Ну и в заключение я хочу задать один вопрос. Конечно, делать долгосрочные прогнозы очень сложно, тем более вы сказали только что все зависит не только от ситуации в Эстонии, но и от ситуации вокруг нее. И эту ситуацию предсказать, конечно, очень сложно, тем более, что и в политическом смысле сейчас очень неспокойные времена. Тем не менее, я помню, что в одном из своих последних выступлений бывший президент Эстонии Томас Хендрик Илвес сказал, что расстояние в уровне жизни между Эстонией и старыми богатыми членами Евросоюза сокращается. И я помню, что он точно сказал, что пройдет еще, не помню какое количество, 10-20 лет, и Эстония сравняется с Финляндией по уровню жизни населения. Я хотел бы спросить у вас, считаете ли вы эти прогнозы господина Ильвеса реалистичными, и действительно ли Эстония приближается к такому солидному европейскому уровню?
I would say that, 20 years is definitely a very long time. If you look at the kind of development that we have had since 91, we are currently at the level of Finnish living standards which they had in the middle of 90s. And of course you can say that, well, too little, too late, why did it come faster? But it is really a big accomplishment. It really is. So in next 20 years, it is quite probable. But there is another issue which actually also might help us in that sense and might be not that good to Finns. The Finnish living standards might actually fall because they also have aging population and quite high debt levels and maybe not the most efficient economy that they could have. But Finns they have something called sisu, which means like internal strength and passion. So they might manage it somehow. But in general, yes, the living standards, the trend is clearly that they will converge. But I suspect that Finns have to come down also a little bit. But 20 years, long time, I would say that it's more probable than not.
Ну, отлично. Я очень рад. Спасибо, Петр. И желаю, чтобы ваши хорошие прогнозы исполнились, а плохие ожидания каким-то образом были решены. Спасибо.